Hello and welcome back to the Enough Mom podcast. I am Jennifer Bryant. I'll be your host today, and we're on episode 113 already. Today's episode is all about when you feel like you just want to start over with this whole parenting thing, how to heal relationships with not only your adult children, but how to do the mending and repairing process with children who may still be in your home. You know, we all have regrets. It's just part of the human experience. There's always a better way that we could have done something. But when we continue to carry our regrets on our shoulders just because we learn of a new parenting hack over here, or, oh, I like the way she does that better. I wish I would have done that with my kids. I don't know about you, but for me, it's like I wish I would have kept my kids off devices a little longer growing up. Maybe they wouldn't be so on them now. But, you know, there are ups and downsides to all of those types of things, especially when it comes to the tech world. We'll do other episodes on tech and devices. But I want you to know, Mama, that I am here with the Enough Mom podcast to help you to know that you can move forward confidently despite what's happened, despite your regrets, despite the past, because those are all things that we can no longer control. What you can control moving into the future are your own choices and your own decisions right now. So let's get into this episode. I was spending time with a friend last week, and she was just sharing with me how her kids who are now in their 20s and 30s, how she sees them struggling with different things. Some have financial struggles, and she says, I wish I would have taught them how to budget. Others have relational struggles, and she says, I wish I would have shared more stories with them about how when I was having a hard time in my marriage, how we overcame it, and actually what not to do, because I did all those what not to do things. And as I just sat and listened to her, let her just kind of vent about what she was feeling, I thought, you know, it doesn't have to be too late, but we also need an outlet to share those types of regrets with our friends who won't judge us, and our friends who won't tell us, oh, you're fine, you did the best you could, it's all water under the bridge, right? I want to make sure that, you know, when I'm sitting in front of someone, or when I have to vent my own feelings to another mom, that she hears me, right? Or that I hear the other person. Because when we are having negative feelings about our past, we need a witness to that. It's almost like a form of grief sometimes. You know, sometimes you need to just be able to share and rehash things as they come up so that your brain can put them in the right place. We have to learn how to right size expectations of ourselves, of our current selves, of our past selves, so that we can move on with our future self. And sometimes honest conversations with friends who may have been there or just understand, or they know you better and they know that you're well-intentioned. They know you would have made different decisions with your kids. And just the fact that you're willing to bring it up shows tremendous growth. And I just want to remind you of that today. That just because you have regrets and you wish you would have done things differently, you just recognizing that you wish it was different is actually a good thing. It's moving your brain in the right direction, and that means there is a chance for change. As we tackle this very tender topic of how to move forward when you regret how you raised your children, I want you to be very, very kind to yourself, because we're going to focus on how to move forward in healing instead of just staying in this swimming pool of regret, because it's not helpful. By the end of this episode, you'll get some tips on how to initiate conversations with your kids, whether they're still at home under your roof, whether they're young adults, maybe out at college or out on their own, or whether they're older than that and starting to raise their own families. Because I promise you, Mama, once your kids start having their own kids, they're going to, let's say, start remembering their childhood a lot more than they would have before. And they're going to take on a different perspective, and they're going to need you. So even if you felt like you didn't do your very best as a mother back then, you have the amazing chance to start a whole new relationship with your kids even now. You get to show up differently in the lives of your kids as they start to raise their own children. And that can be a tremendous blessing. What you need to know right from the start is that it is never too late. Your regret does not have to be the end of the story. It can actually be the beginning of something so much more beautiful. And you get to choose that today. Let's first start by sitting with the weight of your regret. Because like I said before, we all need that trusted person to sit with us who will empathize, who will understand where we're coming from. And I get it. I've been there too. I need to vent to mom friends who have also lost it on their children, who have also been too harsh, too judgmental, too controlling. Because you know what? All of those reactions come out of our insecure need to make sense of our life, make sense of our family, to make sure that we're not behind, to make sure our kids are not behind, not falling behind. You know, we develop these negative responses to things that we can't control when we feel like the whole weight of it is on us. And I recognize too, Mama, I'm not just talking to mothers who also have dads in the home. You know, there are a lot of single mamas out there. If you're listening to this today and you're saying, Jen, it has all been on me. What do you mean? Like, there's no one else to put it on. What I'm saying is, and don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have to worry about shouldering that responsibility, because it is responsibility. You know, I think that does go without saying. But at the same time, you are only one person. You would only be one person even if there was a second parent in the household. We are all responsible for what we as individuals choose to do, whether we have a partner in the situation or whether we're on our own. And you don't have to carry around even more baggage of regretting things you could have done differently. You get to learn a beautiful process of repair and going back to your child and saying, I recognize that things were difficult back then, and this is not an excuse. This is just my acknowledgement that I want to move forward better. Remember, Mama, the regret you feel is not a sign that you have failed. It's evidence that you have grown. Because think about it, you see things much differently now that you're older. Don't we all? 2020 hindsight and all that. We see life differently, and we get to almost speak to our younger selves in that. Actually, that's probably one of the most compassionate practices we can take on, is talking to our younger self and telling her that it's okay. You can even forgive yourself in that same conversation. It's not some hokey, feel-goody kind of practice. It's actually a mental awareness and taking yourself out of your present moment and speaking to something that, you can't control the past, but you can speak to her, because that version of, what they call an inner child is still there in you. You still are every version of yourself that you have been before. You just don't know who you're going to be moving forward. But every time you're able to look back and say, gosh, instead of that was a stupid decision, or what was I thinking? Why did I do that? Getting away from that negative speak and being kinder to yourself and going, okay, 20-year-old me, you chose differently than I would have chosen now. But that's because I know you were feeling stressed because of this and that. And if you knew what I know now, you would not have done that. And it's almost kind of a way that we can reparent ourselves too. It's so cool. It's so cool. So maybe think about trying that, practice that, or share with me in the comments. Have you ever tried to speak to yourself more kindly, or maybe have this, out of the current time frame conversation with your younger self? What did you feel the need to say to her? What did she need to hear? Share with me. I would love to know what your younger self needed to hear. Okay, so let's talk about how to right size our expectations. Because you're a grown person now, you're older than you were yesterday, you know better, you're wiser. So let's talk about how to speak to our younger selves better. Okay, remember, you were never going to be a perfect parent. Your kids were never going to be perfect kids. So stop holding yourself to a standard that you were never going to be able to achieve. And I know that might sound trite or cliche, like, of course, we're not perfect parents, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes we need to be reminded of these truths, because when we are hardest on ourselves, we don't recognize that we're holding ourselves to this invisible standard that we have to bring to the surface, look at it, and really right size it. Because right now it's big, it's like taking over our mindset, but we need to right size it and make it smaller and make it something we can just look at and say, I can deal with this because I know the truth behind it. So your children were always going to face struggles. Whatever that looks like, they would still encounter pain, make their own mistakes, and try to figure out their own plan. That was not a parenting failure on your part. That was just them learning to be human. When I was talking to my friend, I was getting this feeling from her that if she only knew what to do better, that she could have prevented all of their struggles. And don't we feel like that, mamas? Don't we feel like, gosh, if I had just warned him, if I had just had that talk with her sooner, she wouldn't have made that mistake with that boy, or he wouldn't have gone down that wrong street and crashed his bike if I would have just picked him up in my car instead. Like there's all these what ifs, but if we live constantly in that type of anxiety, we're never going to live our life well. We're going to constantly be in that mode of being afraid of every what if. And the truth is, this truth too, mama, we cannot prevent everything. We can only accept what has happened and learn from it and move on. And if you have found yourself trying to explain this type of life lesson to your kids, but you never really thought about it for yourself, this is where you get to think about it for yourself. Because you probably don't have someone coming up and lecturing you anymore. And that's certainly not my intention here. I mean, don't get me wrong. But what I'm attempting to do on this podcast is to be that friend that is alongside you, acknowledging, look, we struggle with this too as moms. And sometimes we need to see that harsh truth, or we need to look through the lenses of someone else to see how our anxieties are affecting us in life, maybe more negatively than we would want to. So if you're constantly running around trying to prevent all of your children's life struggles, please stop. That's not how life works. That's not even how healthy development works. Because healthy development requires that we face certain challenges that help us to build our resilience. Our job as parents was never to create struggle-free adults. Our job is to be that secure base that our kids need when they struggle and they need a soft place to land. And here's the really good news. You can be that. You can start today. It is not too late. Dr. Dan Siegel has done a lot of research around attachment styles, and he's come up with this concept called earned secure attachment. If you studied any of the attachment styles, you know that there is insecure attachment, there's avoidant attachment, and there's secure attachment. And we want to find ourselves in line with secure attachment as often as possible. It's certainly a response to strive for, which means that when you're securely attached, you are not acting out of anxiety or avoidance when it comes to communicating with your loved ones. You are not avoiding difficult conversations, and you are not overly concerned about health and safety and all of those things, but that you are responding to your people in a way that knows that you are secure in yourself and that you can only control what you can control. And you get to ask questions. You get to be curious about the lives and choices of other people, but you are not trying too hard to control that or to avoid discomfort. Dr. Siegel's research shows that our brains remain plastic throughout our lives. It's something called neuroplasticity, which means that we have the ability to change, meaning that certain events in our lives, even though they may have been traumatic or especially memorable or something, that those incidents don't have quite the power to change our entire lives, that we still within our brains have the ability to make choices and decide that we can move forward differently, or we can move forward toward health instead of being permanently affected by those choices or incidents. And this is why I love brain research, because it proves to us that we don't necessarily have to stay stuck in the mindset that we're in, that we don't have to live in this catastrophic world of, well, I guess I can't change anything now. I did what I did, and that's how it's going to be forever. No, we get to choose to change how we relate to our people as long as we're willing to accept our part in the story and move forward differently. Even if you didn't create perfect, secure attachment with your kids, you get to earn that security through awareness, reflection, and repair. It's never too late to become a secure base for your kids, even if they're 18, 25, 35, 45. You get to work on that now. So instead of asking, how can I go back and fix what I did wrong? You can ask, how do I show up differently today? How do I create healing and connection moving forward? Now, before I give you tips on how exactly to do that, I want to talk about what repair does not mean. Because some of you may be watching or listening to this and going, oh, it seems so impossible. I've lost all hope because I just know that our relationship is ruined. My kids haven't even talked to me for years. And while that is unfortunate, and while I even would grieve with you over that if we were sitting together and talking about it, it's definitely something to grieve. Relationship loss is still loss, right? It hurts inside, whether we think we've done something or not. But you still get to move forward and repair it. What repair does not mean is losing your authority as a parent. What repair does not mean is admitting that you were a complete failure. You really don't need to go down that road. I mean, that's kind of gets into the area where you're just starting to play the martyr and self-flagellation and, oh, just I'm horrible, I know, and I'll say it all the time. But that's not what your kids need to hear, right? It's not like the ultimate time of confession, and because what that ends up doing is it ends up drawing more attention to you instead of it being about what it is about your relationship with your child. There's two people here, right? You don't need to fall on your sword, as they say, in order to heal things. That's more of a martyr mentality, and it can be manipulative sometimes, honestly. So that's not what repair needs to look like. Repair is also not opening a door to disrespect. It does not give, or is not have to give. If you're afraid of starting the repair process, I'm saying it does not have to give an open door for your kids to then start disrespecting you. If you're coming into this parent-child relationship, or if you have treated it as a high authority and low submissiveness type of relationship, then it can be tempting to think that if you let your guard down at all, then that's going to allow all the disrespect to enter. And if you used to rule your kids with an iron fist, I can see why you would think that letting your guard down would mean opening the doors for attack. But that's not how human relationship works. I mean, there may be hurt there, sure, and you cannot control the responses of your kids. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But please don't think or believe that repair means that you are extremely vulnerable to any type of thing. It's actually a step of leadership. Repair also doesn't mean taking responsibility for every choice that your adult child makes. Whether you think you were the cause of it or not, they are still responsible for their choices now. And even if they blame you for why they make those choices now, that's something that they need to deal with on their side of things. They have to understand, and you don't need to be the one to teach them this, because believe me, there's a lot of great information out there. But they will soon come to understand that their choices are their choices regardless of their upbringing, right? I get to sit here and say, I get to make choices for myself now, not based on how my parents raised me or didn't raise me. I'm moving forward in security and confidence in who I am right now. Okay. So in the same way, you don't need to take responsibility for your adult children's choices. And that actually leads me to my last point, because repair is also not allowing your children to use your past behavior as an excuse for their current behavior. They will learn that on their own, or they have to learn that on their own, right? You are no longer in this parent, teacher-student relationship unless you develop a trusting relationship where they actually ask you for advice. But this is what repair does mean. Repair means that I am secure enough to own my part. Repair means I love you enough to hear your pain. And repair means that I'm committed to showing up differently moving forward, or from here on out. It's a commitment that you don't want things to stay the same. So if we don't want things to stay the same, if we want things to change, then we have to be willing to do things differently, to approach things differently. And sometimes this is a matter of our personal attitude or perception toward things. Sometimes it's a matter of personal belief that's keeping us stuck in the past, or something that we haven't quite disconnected yet. Sometimes disconnection needs to happen in order for new brain pathways to be repaired. It is a true physiological neuroscience thing. And it also conceptually is something that's proven to actually heal relationships instead of keeping them in the same ugly cycle over and over. Being secure enough to change all of those things is not weakness. It's leadership. It's emotional maturity. It's the kind of strength that actually heals relationships. This is the cool part, parents. When you decide to model repair with your children, even if it's just as simple as, sweetheart, I'm sorry that I yelled at you today. I should not have done that, and let's move forward differently. Even something as simple as that shows them a few different things. It shows them how to take responsibility without shame. It shows them how to acknowledge hurt without being defensive. It shows them how to maintain boundaries while staying connected. But you're not punishing them just because there are feelings, right? And it shows them how healthy, secure relationships actually work. You are showing the building blocks of something that they can continue to emulate. Listen, even if they're older, even if you're not getting around to this repair thing until your kids are adults, watching anyone else model this could mean such drastic things for their future relationships, even if they're already married with their own kids. Experiencing you coming to them in such a humble way changes people. Even if you don't think you can directly teach them anything anymore, like you used to when they were 10 or something, does not mean that you can't still model it now. I have to tell you, friends, one of the most healing experiences of my life was when my dad came to me. And it wasn't over anything particularly dramatic. We didn't have this big family split or anything. But one of the times I was visiting him, he just felt the need to tell me, Jen, I don't want you to feel like you're not enough. Like when you talk to me, I don't want to come across critical, and just know that I'm very proud of you. Just know that I've always loved you for everything that you've chosen to do with your life, and I don't want you to sit there worried about what I think of you in that way. And what he was doing is he was setting me free from my own potential worries, right? Because he knows how important his role is in my life and my sister and my brother's lives, right? And there's something in every parent, and this is when he was, he was in his 60s or something, it's never too late to make those small little repairs with your kids, because even if they feel small or they feel too distant, they mean a lot. They have a huge ripple effect. And if it takes you just sitting and deciding to say something, a little something is a whole lot better than nothing. Here are some practical steps for how to start the repair process with children of different ages and stages. Okay, so this is for children, let's say ages 5 to 12. Okay, you can certainly repair with kids younger than this, but let's just keep it in this stage where the kids are more verbal, they're saying more things, they're understanding more things. With younger kids, repair conversations are simpler and more immediate. You might say something like this to a kid between ages 5 and 12. Hey buddy, I need to talk to you about something that happened this morning. When I yelled at you about spilling the milk, that wasn't okay. You made a mistake, but I made a bigger mistake by yelling at you about it. I'm sorry. You deserve a mama who stays calm even when accidents happen. Will you forgive me? Keep it short, keep it specific, keep it immediate. Do it as immediately as you can after you've calmed down, right? Don't over-explain, just model that saying you're sorry is normal and safe. and they will model after you. For tweens and teens between the ages of 13 and 18. Okay, with this age group, you can go a little bit deeper, but keep it specific. Focus on specific incidents rather than making broad character judgments. Start with, I've been thinking about how I handled that situation last week when you wanted to go to that party. I got really controlling instead of listening to your perspective about it. I think I was feeling scared about keeping you safe, but I honestly didn't handle it well. I'm working on trusting you more and communicating better. I'm so sorry for shutting you down. I'll try to be better about listening to you in the future. Notice that you are not playing the martyr. You're not saying, I'm such a terrible parent. Oh my gosh, I ruined your childhood. Don't even go there. You are owning a specific behavior and you're sharing your growth process. And that's exactly what needs to be modeled for teens and tweens. Young adults between the ages of 18 and 25. Remember, this is the part where adults are forming the large part of their identity, right? They're independent. They're most likely away from you or living apart from you in some kind of way. Okay. This is the stage where they are constantly reassessing their childhood. Believe me, I did. I remember this stage very well for myself. And I remember going back. It's kind of like these rainbow streams that you go back and forth on your timeline, and you're saying, okay, I'm 22, but when I was 12, how did my mom respond when I told her this? Okay, so I should respond in this way. I remember making those connections very clearly. So just be sensitive to where your adult child is, and remember that they're still learning about who they are. They're still trying to figure themselves out. Okay. They also might be old enough to start seeing their own therapist, or maybe they're processing these things with their friends. So just know that if they are in this age group, you need to be sensitive to a couple of different things here. It's important that you say, I've been doing some reflecting. Own your own process. I've been doing some reflecting on my parenting journey, and I'm realizing that there were times that I was harder on you than I needed to be. I was dealing with my own anxiety and stress, and sometimes I let that affect how I showed up for you. I'm wondering if you would be open to talking with me about it. I'd like to know what that was like for you. I want to understand your experience, and I want you to know that I'm committed to doing better in our relationship now. There are some really important things here. Remember, you are inviting conversation. You're not demanding forgiveness. You cannot demand forgiveness of your grown child. You're acknowledging without over apologizing. Okay? Just say it and leave it there. You are expressing curiosity about their experience. This is so important. You have to be willing to be a curious person in order to repair relationships. And you're also making a commitment in the present and for the future. Now, for adult children over the age of 25, there may be some distance or pain in the relationship. I know we're living in a time when adult children are more likely to cut off their parents for different reasons, and there's a lot of interesting reports being done about that right now. I've been watching how adult children are describing why they would cut off, and I encourage you to go look at some of those reports right now. I'm actually going to put a few conversations I've seen in the show notes so that you can reference them. So whether your adult children are still in your lives, or if you are going to take that step to reach out to them, you can say something like this. I know our relationship has not always been easy, and I've been doing some work to understand my part in that. I'm realizing now that when you were growing up, and then you can insert your specific circumstance or behavior. I didn't understand then what I understand now about how that may have affected you. I'd really like to hear about your experience if you're willing to share it. And I want you to know that I'm working on showing up differently in our relationship now. In that type of conversation, here is what you are not doing. You are not asking them to take care of your emotions. You are not requiring them to forgive you immediately. You're not making it all about your guilt or shame. You are not rehashing every conversation or situation from childhood. But what you are doing is taking responsibility for your specific behaviors. You're creating space for their truth and not just yours. You're expressing commitment to change, and you're staying curious. There's that word again. You're staying curious and open. Here's one more crucial thing about initiating conversations with your kids. Listen. We have to listen. We have to really, really listen. Don't defend. Don't explain away. Don't minimize. Just hear them. After they've shared, you can say things like, "Thank you for sharing that with me. I can see how that hurt you. That makes sense given what you've experienced. I'm so sorry you had to carry that." Remember, the goal is not to make yourself feel better. The goal is to make space for truth, reconnection, and healing. I want you to understand something important, especially when dealing with adult relationships. Healing is not a one and done situation. It should not be a drive-by conversation. It should not carry with it an expectation that once you've done it, then you're done. Just know that it's going to be an ongoing process. You can only do your part. You can only say what you need to say. And if they need to talk some more, you can listen some more. And that will go a long way into healing relationship. Your job is to do your part. Remember, to offer repair, to show up differently, and to keep your door open. But you can't control their responses. You can only control your growth and your behavior. So how does this connect to our Enough Mom framework? Courage, confidence, and calling. Well, first of all, courage. It takes incredible courage to own our past regrets without drowning in shame. It takes courage to initiate conversations when we don't know how they'll be received. And it takes courage to listen to our children's pain without becoming defensive. This is the courage to be imperfect and still worthy. The courage to say, "I got it wrong, but I'm committed to doing better." Confidence. Remember, true confidence is not about being perfect. It's not about already being good at stuff. It's about being secure enough to own your own mistakes. It's knowing that our worth isn't determined by flawless parenting, but by our willingness to grow, to love, and to repair well. When we engage in true repair work, we're showing our kids what it looks like to model truly confident and secure leadership. We show them that strong people take responsibility, that mature people repair relationships, and that wise people keep on learning. Learn how to do it better. And calling. Remember, your calling as a mother does not end when your children turn 18 or move out or start their own families. Our calling just evolves. It looks different. Right now, Mama, your calling may be to heal old wounds, to correct old patterns, to become the secure base that your child needs to return to. Show them through your actions what redemption and restoration can look like. That is sacred work, friends, and it's certainly a calling worth embracing. Thank you so much for being here today. If anything in this episode resonated with you, will you share it with another mom friend today? And if you want to continue the conversation, find me on Instagram. I'm at @JenniferBryant_ and send me a DM. I'd love to hear from you. I read them all. I answer them all. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe this podcast so that more people can find out how to be an enough mom. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of confident and secure conversations you can have with your kids. Please share with me in the comments. Until next time, you have the courage to be confident in your calling. Bye-bye.